I know this is really early morning for everyone in India, but thank you all those of you who are going to be joining in, or even for those of you who are going to watch this later because it's a working day. I know people are like also getting ready to go to work. I am so grateful that Leigh Anne is here with us today. This is going to be a very, very interesting conversation. For those of you, for some of you, I've mentioned who she is. Those of you that don't know, she is actually my therapist. Also, we met in the work that we both were doing with Laura and Bernard on the Embodied Soul Awakening program, and I just resonated so much with Leigh Anne's approach to relationships, to the mind itself, and like to healing from trauma. And I was like, Leigh Anne, let's do this. Let's get on a live and let's talk about relationships and what it means. So thank you so much, Leigh Anne, for coming here and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with the people here in India. And I'm so looking forward to what comes through in the next 1 hour.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be with both of you. I'm really excited for this. I've been looking forward to it all day. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Leigh Anne. I am in Los Angeles. I've been here for about 15 years. I live here with my son. I'm a psychologist, and I used to work with all ages of people on pretty much every sort of topic you can imagine. It wasn't until about 6 years ago, I would say, that I started to really specialize in love, sex, and relationships because I had to kind of really learn through the fire in my own personal life without getting too deep into my own story. I had to really get humble and realize that I actually had quite a lot to learn about romantic relationships, which led me to the topic we'll talk about today, which is conscious relationships, which is something I feel very passionately about. And I'm just so excited to talk to both of you because I think you're beautiful models of a happy, healthy, conscious relationship. So I can't wait for this.
Thank you. All right. So how do we get started? Avinash,
So no,
most
two
people know
ladies
who
are
you
talking.
are.
So the only thing I can do is to listen when two ladies are there talking about the conscious relationship stuff.
Okay, and
And
like for people watching this, the reason why Avinash and I are together in this show is because both of us are in a relationship, and that relationship has evolved quite a bit. And Leigh Anne's seen some of the journey of this relationship, and then I think it's just a conversation between us and how it's like what works, what doesn't work, and what's our what. So this might not be what everyone wants to do, right? But at least a model of what really works for two adult humans, I think, is what we want to talk
just to
about.
clarify, Leigh Anne is going to interview both of us. It's not Mugdha's show, so the audience
Yes,
who is
yes,
listening in, just wait for Leigh Anne to ask us questions so that I can respond. So I'm waiting
yes,
for that. Let's go
yes,
ahead.
Avinash.
Yeah, this is kind of like a flip because I know I'm a guest, but I'm actually going to take the reins and interview you both. So I'm really excited. So I just really actually am so curious to hear if you wouldn't mind sharing, both of you, how you actually met each other. What attracted you to each other? Tell us the story of how you met and came together.
Avinash,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, Mugdha will start.
No, you go.
Let me hear you out first.
So,
I'll base my
I'll tell you.
version on your story.
Wow. Okay. So we met like literally at a farmer's market. Okay, it's as corny as it can get. I used to make probiotics at that time. I used to make like kefir, and I had a stall there. And Avinash had just come with a friend, and that's where we first met. And I think that was like 5 years ago now. That was 2017,
Yeah.
and we were friends for a while. I had just walked out of my marriage. I still didn't know, like I had zero interest in relationships, so to speak, because that was a 14-year long marriage, and I'd come back to India, and I was like being penalized for even the thought of like letting go of the idea of marriage, right? So I just like was in that space where I was not even thinking men or anything like that, and I think I was in that space for 2.5, 3 years, 2 years, I think, yeah. But then when I came back finally to India to kind of build Thrive, because the investors had come on board and I had to kind of scale it up from just being a solo wandering nomad uh, nutritionist to actually having a team. That's when I came back, and that's when I actually um, started hanging out more with Avinash. But to me, he was still a friend, and I think Avinash can take it from there of what changed.
Okay, so I recently read somewhere that there are star sign reading was there, and I look at world from a relationship point of view. Like I look at the entire world because I can't make sense of it. That is what I have realized over a period of time since my childhood. It was very difficult to make sense of the things going around in this world, and I look at everything through the conscious relationship point of view. So I think when I met Mugdha, it was more of I want to be friends with this lady who is awesome, who is come from Canada, who is like must be a nightlife person, and
Yeah,
I was
he thought I was like a party person, Leanne. He thought like I'm
yeah,
someone from Toronto, so I must be this really cool person who goes like hangs out
I know.
and
I
parties.
just wanted to be a friend with a very cool person because I have this all sorts of collection of friends who had different quirky habits and quirky vices. So I thought maybe this can be one addition to my, galaxy of stars that I have built around me, and that was how it started off. What has changed? In fact, it's very difficult to be friends with Mugdha. A lot of people will agree to that. Because she comes across as someone who is like, stay away from me. Initially, it was like this. Okay,
No,
yeah.
Ah,
I'm
Don't
not
don't
that
don't even
anymore.
don't even come near to me. Okay, I'm not here. I don't want to be talking to men, and I don't want to be in a relationship, and I want to be here for whatever millennia, and you guys are whatever. So Mugdha, whatever relationship, the sort of relationship that we maintained before we started actually dating for after a couple of years, that was the whole credit goes to me because I maintain that small thread of conversation going. Okay, how are you? Do you need anything, or can I do something for you? And I had my own battles to fight of my own past relationship and marriage and all that. So that was going on simultaneously, but still, like I am like a friends person. Like since the day I remember, I am a friends person. So I always maintain that kind of connection with most of the people around me, and that is how the connection I keep maintaining. And somehow I found a place in her life slowly, and it took up from there. Like one day we decided. I mean, we had something. We had a conversation which was beyond imagination, which was beyond my own imagination. I can have that kind of conversation with some other human being, and I think that is what has mesmerized Mukta about me. Till then, it was hold on. So it changed since that moment on, and then we hit it off, and it's going on. So that was the physical part of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Leah.
I love this so much. Have you ever done an interview like this where you're talking in depth about your relationship publicly?
No, no, I think it's the first time. But we have been talking to people like one on one. We people ask you how did you meet and what you did together and how did you hit it off. In
Yeah,
fact,
for me,
I get question like this: how do you mentor a startup? I said, start dating the founder. So that is how you mentor a startup, right? So,
I love this so much. Well, you're both so brave for actually talking so openly about your relationship because a lot of times people just, yeah, it takes some courage to actually
yeah.
openly talk about
For
it.
me, Leanne, like I wasn't like for 2 years, I just wasn't looking for a relationship. And then when I came back, I really felt like, and honestly, it was also a physical need, like, because I felt like I just needed to be touched with love, right? Like I just needed someone to hold me, and it came from a very deep place. And I actually thought about what is it that I'd want, like if I had to think of a relationship again. And it's that period. So this is really funny. I'd also like I tell a lot of people in my team also. So when I opened my mind up to the fact that okay, maybe I wanted to get back into a relationship with another man, I actually went on Tinder for a whole of 30 minutes, and it was so terrible. I uninstalled the app in like 30 entire minutes. It was out of my life. But I opened my mind up, and then I kind of listed down the things that I was now ready for, right? Like, what did I really want from a partner? Because I'd become really more self aware in the 2 years of just being alone. I'd kind of worked on myself. And that conversation that Avinash refers to, right? That was a really intense one. We spoke for so long because until then, in my mind, Avinash was just this friend zoned person, right? And then we spoke, and I really saw how tender he was, how deep he was in terms of his ability to care for someone, and I could see beyond the filters I had put in, and then I was like, okay, maybe this is what is really going to happen. And then I'm not going to go into the woo-woo part of it, like the tattoo that I saw and all of that, because that would just be like too much. But yeah, like
But Mugdha changed. Like the day I met, and subsequently I met her.
yeah, we all change. Who
Yeah,
doesn't?
yeah. I mean, she changed drastically. Like I remember the first time we met, we went to a coffee shop, and she said, "I can't even have a coffee." I said, "Okay, no problem." I mean, I don't want to drink. And next time, I mean, couple of years later, we went for a movie, and I didn't even ask her for, you want to have a dinner or you want to eat something, because I thought she's still the same person who doesn't eat anything outside. And she was like absolutely hungry. Okay, I don't.
Yeah.
Then we ended up eating in some place which is like
I
awful
think
food.
that's the first dinner date that we had, and Avinash is like so embarrassed about it because it was the shadiest joint that was open at 10:30 in the night, and he didn't know I would eat out because that was the
I was carrying that image of first time I met in Starbucks. Like, okay, I'm not going to have coffee. I'm not going
yeah.
to drink
I was such a Nazi
coffee.
with food, Leanne. Like I'd
Yeah.
never eat outside and stuff like that.
Oh my
And then I'm
gosh.
like, we're out and I'm hungry, and what are we going to do? And he's like, what? So yeah, it was like
Oh,
this.
I love that. Okay, so you were actually just hungry, and so you ended up getting food together. But how did you know it was like, oh my gosh, this is like a date? When did you know, like, oh wow, we're actually on a date?
I think in hindsight, now
Yeah.
now that I think of it, maybe that was a date because so with him I was just hanging out, right? He felt very safe and he still does, and I think that's something that really attracted me to him because I like even like from the evolutionary astrology perspective and the readings Laura did for me, right? Like I have this karmic history of feeling betrayed by men, also sometimes by women, right? So I kind of, that's why I was like in such a touch me not place once I got out of the marriage and everything. I just didn't want anyone to get in and hurt me again. With
Yeah.
him, I would always feel very safe. Like even if it was like we went for a late night movie for it, which was not a date, like when we were just hanging out as friends, and if I was sleepy, I could just fall asleep in the car and not be worried about what's going to happen, right? So I felt very safe with him all through that I've known him, and I think that's how he slowly uh, got deeper and deeper into
Flawed
my
by a way. Yeah.
no, you didn't flaw, you just like very gently came in. But that's how we really got together. So it's like not this one moment where we met and we said, oh, this is it, like this is the person I
Yeah.
want to be with, right? It was a very slow, gentle process where I could open up more and more and start being more vulnerable. And I think that credit goes to him because um, I mean, and you work with so many people, right? Like if you have so many walls and so many boundaries, most people aren't going to take the effort to really get to know you. They'll be like, okay, you don't want to, like, I'll just stay outside the boundary that you built up for me.
Right.
He, though, kind of just slowly found like small little spaces to kind of come in and come in and come in. And yeah,
I love this actual conversation because we were just so I have a co-ed sort of group of men and women. We talk about conscious relationships. This just came up where we were wondering what is better. And of course, there's multiple ways that you can approach relationships, but is it better to first be friends and have it be a slow build into a relationship? Or is it better to kind of have it be this right off the bat magnetic attraction to each other? I think for many of us, and I don't know, maybe this is interesting for your viewers to think about, but when it's like this fast thing where it's like you're pulled like magnets and it's all very electric and exciting at the beginning, sometimes that can be a trauma bond, an
yeah,
unconscious trauma bond. And so, but I don't think it's always the case that that's true. So I don't want to scare people, but oftentimes it can be. Whereas you were building, it's almost like you were building the foundation of
yeah,
something that felt really safe, especially for someone like you who needed to trust and heal your
yeah.
relationship with men and relationships again. So I think that was the right approach.
And
So I think,
like after we actually started, like after that day when we said, hey, like let's see if this is going to work for us. Let's get together. It just switched, and that magnetic, electric. all of that, right, that happened to both of us, and we'd never experienced that with each other, right? Like we'd known, so 2017 to 2019 we'd known each other for 2 years, and it was a very, like, you're with a friend and there's like none of the oxytocins and the dopamine rush, none of the neurotransmitters going all over the place, and then like we got together and like it switched, and then it's for me it's been like, even now when I see a message from him or when my phone rings with his number, I have this little flutter that happens in my heart, right? So it's never stopped since that day.
So, Lian, in my case, what happened? I had my fair share of relationship where I was actually falling into love. Actually, I used to fall into love. Literally, I used to fall. Let me do whatever I want to do. And in Mugdha's case, I actually rose in love. Like I rise up in the love. So in fact, I shared with my best friend. I don't feel like that old feeling of falling in love with love. What I feel is more of the conscious part that you talk about. I am consciously being there. I want to be with her. I don't need to be with her. I don't need to fall in love. I don't need to behave like a romantic fool. I have, I can be myself and I can be with her at the same time. It was not the case. Like I had, I my own share of failed relationship even after my marriage. So I used to make the same mistake again and again and again. And with Mugdha, I realized, okay, this is not how it is going to be. And I shared with my friend, okay, I'm not feeling like I'm in love, but I am in a relationship. So I don't know how it is going to work out. So that I maybe what you talk about that conscious relationship, but this is what it feels like. I'm consciously in a relationship with someone. I want to be there. I don't need to be here, but that is what it is.
Yes, that's beautiful. Okay, this is a perfect segue into conscious relationships. And so, if people watching aren't familiar with this phrase, it's become kind of more popular recently. And conscious relationships for me is sort of this next evolution of romantic relationships. And also it can be beyond romantic relationships with family and friends as well. You can practice the skills of conscious relationships. But conscious relationships, so like the word conscious, why is it there, right? Conscious just means aware, being aware. And
Yes.
so for me, conscious relationships means being aware of many different things. Probably the first thing is that a relationship, especially romantic ones, are two people coming together that will um, tend to trigger each other, and so eventually push other's buttons and sort of touch upon certain wounds and places that actually that's a good thing and it's not something to run away from. So conscious relationships in that way can make these types of relationships incredibly evolutionary. That's kind of another word. Instead of conscious relationships, some people call them evolutionary relationships, because if
Like that.
both people are aware of this, then they can actually heal their wounds together in kind of this beautiful container of love and support and understanding. Not that it looks perfect all the time, like it's hard and it's bumpy, but as long as both people are aware, wow, all of our stuff's going to come up, and we
Yeah.
can actually make a choice. We can make a choice to be brave and work on it together. Most people, though, what do? They actually run in the other direction. They might leave the relationship. They might sweep things under the rug. They avoid because they don't
Yeah.
want to feel that stuff. But I'm inviting people to actually look at these things that come up with curiosity, because that's where the growth happens. That's where the evolution happens. So that's kind of just a really broad overview of conscious relationships. So we can get into, I want to hear your definitions as well.
I don't have a definition, but evolutionary seems like the perfect word for it, right? Because I have really evolved in the context of my relationship with him, is how I think most of my evolution has happened. See, I could have still continued to grow professionally, and the work I do at iThrive, the clients, knowledge, I would have grown. But the gunk that comes up in the context of this relationship, right? Like sometimes it's really stuff that's been repressed, like childhood trauma comes up, right? And sometimes I think the relationship container itself kind of says, okay, time for you to up level, and then like it brings something in. And what really works well for both of us, and I think that's for me like what an evolutionary relationship is like, okay, you have a safe space between the two of you. Stuff's gonna come up. if you get really afraid of it, the other person is going to have the courage for you in that moment, so that you can look at it and you can clean it up. The other person's not going to do the cleanup for you, right? Like, you're the one holding the broom or the vacuum cleaner or the mop, but they're just going to be there, like, nourishing you,
Yeah.
giving you like real food also sometimes when food is needed, like just being there for you, so that you can grow, right? So that the dark stuff, or the like, there are no lower, I don't think there are any negative emotions, but like guilt and shame and these kind of emotions which are so heavy, so you can start cleaning these emotions up, so that you can become a lighter being, right? And then, like, you go, like, the more you grow, the lighter you become, and the more you expand, and then that expansion is what I think is really what an evolutionary relationship for me feels like. And I think that, and repair plays a big part of that, right? It's not just about you bringing up your stuff and triggers and all of that. I think, like, big part of that evolution is how well you repair every time there's a fracture, because
Yeah.
that repair also helps you repair other stuff in life. Like, that's been my experience with Avinash. uh, it,
Yeah.
it's like, and for the first 2 years it was absolutely like amazing. Like, like, it's not like the romance is gone, even though he thinks he's not a romantic. He's very sweet with like tiny things that he does. uh, so the first couple of years, and
I
also,
don't have those flutters going around, right?
that's okay, I mean, I know you can't sleep the entire night if I've said that maybe I'm not doing so well this evening and I might come over to your place if I'm not doing too well. You not being able to sleep that whole night is like worse. Like,
Okay,
I
that
wouldn't
is
want,
the
yeah,
flutter part.
yeah.
Okay,
Anyway,
that
but
takes care of the
for
flutter
me,
part.
like, I think what happened is the first 2 years also, like, for me, I had a lot of positive projections about him. Like, I had like, this is perfection and it can't get better than this. And then I think the relationship demanded that we started looking at each other's broken stuff also, so that we're really more authentic with each other. So that to me feels like the most conscious part of our relationship now is the fact that, like, flaws, beauty, everything is there, and we still intentionally want to be with each other, right? To me, that's
Yeah.
what it means. Avinash, I'm sorry I took up so long to describe that, but
No, I mean that is what I'm expecting. Like even in the live programs, like I'm the one who is listening most of the time. So Mugdha is the one who is talking.
no, but like, your answer, please.
Yeah. So what happens, na, Leigh Anne, the most important part for me is to feel free in any setup, whether it is work, whether it is a relationship, whether it is friendship, whether it any kind of setup. I want to feel free. That is what I feel with Mugdha. So in as compared to my previous relationship, I can feel free. And it is very difficult to explain it to anyone who is in a relationship. Like we decided to stay apart, like we should have our own places. We are not staying together.
Yeah.
Physically, we are not there together. So we stay nearby, but we are in a different, we have rented our own places and we maintain our own life and we maintain the house the way we want. Like you can look at Mugdha's background and you can look at my background, right? It's our personalities are like that. Like Mugdha's is all the colors and lights and plants, and mine is more of a plain wall and some hidden stuff here in the cupboard. Okay, these are my emotions. Like they are kept here. So that is how I am, and that. So when someone allows me to do that, okay, maintain your some stuff inside and keep this wall as blank as you want it to be, and I feel very happy looking at all the colors behind her, and same time it allows me to be myself. I allow the other, I not allow in that sense, but let the other person be the
You just
way
let each
he
other
or
be.
she, yeah, let each other be whatever they want. So that is what the conscious relationship is for me. Okay, we respect each other's choices, decisions. At the same time, if needed, if wanted, be part of it. I can stay at her place. She can come to my place. We cook for each other. We spend time together. We look at each other's. She looks at my blank walls. I look at her colorful walls, and we are happy about it. Like that's what it means to me.
I love that so much. And actually, can I just point out something on a really practical level that people can take away? This is beautiful, actually, advice, whether you knew it or not, because what you're talking about having separate spaces is actually quite smart in a lot of ways because, and I'll just it's too much for me to get into the masculine feminine polarity stuff, but in sort of the teachings of that whole space, it's actually encouraged for both people to have their own spaces so that they can actually go back and recharge and
Yeah.
keep some of the magnetism alive. Because if you're with each other 24/7, you start to lose that a little bit. And it's just kind of happens. You actually start to vibrate at sort of the same resonance, which is good for like, it's like a best friend vibe, but it's not great for sexual polarity. So it's actually really good for you to be separate. And beyond that piece, it protects against codependency. This is something that I actually teach people. I call it the dance of union and separation. So learning how to, when you're together, be deeply intimate and really kind of merge together, but then also know how to separate out into your own energy, into your own spaces, your lives, your family, your friends, your hobbies, your passions that are separate from when you're together all the time.
Right.
And in a perfect world, it would be sort of like a nice balance of togetherness and separateness. But for different couples, they need different amounts of
Yeah.
those things. But I think that what's interesting is some of my clients get afraid because they've kind of been taught through Hollywood movies and things like that, that when you're a couple, you're supposed to be together all the time.
25.
24/7. And then like if the other person needs a little like breathing room and space, they get afraid and see it as like, oh my God, something's wrong, right? But it's actually, that's not the case. And so I want to normalize it, that this is actually a protection for the relationship. And if you go off and you have like your separate passions, you actually come back together revitalized with the kind of like gifts to offer the other person, if that makes sense. And so
Yes.
I thank you for sharing that part about living separately. It's actually a really good thing.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
me, because like I need this space, and he has a gym in the living room, and I can't like I can't even think of that. So it's a really
Yeah, I can't think of having plants in my living room. Look at behind, you can see the see unimaginable.
so this
In
works
fact,
for us
we
very well.
stayed together for a couple of months, like, and she one day she asked me to leave. Okay, go. And I didn't have a place to go, so I thought I'm going to maintain my own place, whatever.
I didn't ask you to leave home. You decided
Oh,
that.
okay.
No, so this was just when the lockdowns happened, and he wanted to go on this nomad experiment. Like I had been a nomad for 2 years, and I kept raving about it, and like it was so cool. Like just 2 bags, and you go anywhere in the world and stuff like that. And then he decided to do that when the lease for his earlier apartment kind of expired. He said, okay, I'm not going to rent a new place. I'm just going to be a nomad for 3 months, and then I come back and I find a new place, and then weekends, like through the week I travel, weekends I come and stay with you. So we were absolutely okay with that, and then the lockdown happened, right? So it's the entire nomad
I,
like,
I was
it went
without a
away.
place. I
So
was stuck.
for 3 months we actually lived together, and I liked that experience. But if I'm really honest, at some point I started feeling, okay, like this is just too close now. And that incident that he refers to, where I asked him to leave, I did not ask him to leave. He found some joke by the government, really, like something that the cops had written about arresting people who'd be out on the streets beyond curfew time. He found that funny, and I said, like, this is like taking away our authority and our freedom and our sovereignty, and like, so the anarchist in me like rebelled against finding that thing humorous. And then that became a fight. Okay, like, we were just walking. He like, check this tweet. It's so funny. I'm like, how can you find it funny? It's like taking people's freedom away. And we had a fight, and then I'm like, I can't talk to you if you think this is okay. I never said leave, like go on in it. No, that's you. You thought that you should now go, but no, we will live together for another month and a half after that. But
Yeah,
we realized that it's not
So
going to work
that
out.
was the experience actually that actually formed our resolve to live separately whenever we get a chance, and as soon as the lockdown started going down and I released an apartment, and it gives us that space, as you rightly mentioned, Lee. Like what we need sometimes, we just need to be with ourselves. in spite of being in close relationship with anyone, howsoever close it might be. You just need your space to recharge your battery, as you
Just
said.
go inwards. You just want to be
Yeah,
alone sometimes, right? So
Yes, yes. And I'm very much an introvert. And so if I don't actually get a little bit of that alone time, and I have like a mother and a lot of people around, I mean, I have a son and I have a lot of people around me. So if I don't get the alone time, I actually get very irritable. That's
yeah,
just me personally. I feel like I'm just can't, like, because if you're someone who does spiritual work or a lot of inner work, you just can't actually do that by definition if there's always people around you.
yeah.
So, but like, so, and I just to wrap this part up, I hope people aren't going to be afraid. I know a lot of people do live together. That's totally fine. I'm not saying it's like bad to do that, but you do want to just carve out some time to, go have lunch with your best friend, like, go do hiking or something. If your partner doesn't like that, go do stuff alone separately, because the phrase absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's
yeah,
true, because then if you were to go away for 2 weeks somewhere, you would be so excited to see him
yeah,
when you came back, right? It's like that kind of energy. So just for people who feel like they're spending too much time together, just trust your intuition and just make a little space, and just to also destigmatize the whole thing of like, when you are separate and alone, it's okay. It's actually very, very good
yeah.
for the relationship.
Yeah,
Thank you for
I
thank
think
you
in
for endorsing
Bollywood,
it.
sorry.
India, no one will understand this. But thank you.
Yeah, if you think it's hard
So
for the
we
West,
find it difficult to explain it to someone like really close friend.
Yeah.
Why don't you stay together? I said, I don't want to. Like, we don't want to.
Oh
like
my gosh.
everyone sees how great we are together. We work together. We're really creating this amazing, and they just can't understand why we aren't living together, right? Like, and it goes against everything in Indian society, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
hard as a concept. But for me, also, Leanne, the other aspect, like one is the space you get for yourself, but it really also builds your trust muscle, like your
Mm,
ability to trust the other person in the relationship, to know that you know like whatever is the agreement that you made to be with each other as partners, that's going to be really maintained. I think that, and that got tested a little bit in our relationship. I don't know if you want to go into that today, but like for me, I've felt like my ability to trust has just phenomenally gone up because of this arrangement that we have, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I'm really happy that actually this is like a new concept, because I really do see both of you as, your models of what's possible. So like,
yeah,
if you guys have such a great relationship and people around you are like, they should be looking at what you're doing on a practical level and what's making it work. And this is one of the aspects that's making it work. And so,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, just for people to get curious maybe about what that would look like, right? They don't have to kind of all of a sudden run off and have two separate places. You can just kind of take small steps towards that, right? And just play with it and see how you feel. And so I actually like this, because I wanted to transition into just giving people some practical examples of what, this conscious relationships that you guys are practicing. What are some practical ways of how this shows up in your day-to-day life? And I wanted to circle back to what Mugdha said, because you brought up this really important and beautiful point of the importance of repair in relationships, which is so, so key. And, whether it's a romantic partnership or repair, I do it all the time with my son when we butt heads. And this thing of repair is, let's spend a couple minutes on this. Maybe you have some tips, but I'll just share vulnerably, like, as a mother, if I lose my temper with my son, um, in the past, when I was younger and more immature, I wouldn't have thought that repair was even an option. This is
mm,
before I did a lot of my own inner work. I might have just tried to like sweep it under the rug and just like
Yeah.
move on, right? And change the energy and make a joke or something. But the repair is so good to model for him, but it takes humility. Like, if I lose my temper with him, right, which just happened last week because he interrupted me, I was trying to work. It's like I have to actually get really humble and go to him and be like, you know what, I'm really sorry. It's like giving that apology. Sometimes you have to put your ego to the side and be like,
Yeah.
I made a mistake. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. And so that's hard for a lot of people to be able to say, I apologize, right? And then even if it's not you that has to apologize, the repair process is so big because it's just opening the door to resolving something that doesn't feel good still to you, right? And so if it doesn't feel good still to you, it's going to kind of be in the air, it's going to be lingering in the air between you. And it's just really good. I kind of call it like keeping things clean, just like making sure if anything's still on your heart that you continue to work through it. So how does this look in your, day to day? How do you approach this repair thing?
Avinash?
No, it's your. I break things like you repair.
No, he doesn't. So I think for me, the repair comes from a place of being aware that, like, today in this moment, do I still want to be in a relationship with him? Do I still want him in my life, right? Like, so why do I want him in my life is really a moment to moment conscious awareness thing that I do with myself. And then the repair naturally comes out of that. Now the risk of repair, like sometimes when I make a mistake, right, the risk with that, and this is based on my past experiences, is you actually open yourself up to the possibility of getting abused again, because you are going in from a place of like saying, hey, I was wrong, and you're obviously feeling a little ashamed about your behavior, probably feeling a little guilty of the way about the way you behave. And I think guilt is not necessarily a bad emotion. It's a way, when it comes internally from your conscience itself, it's your moral compass telling you that you messed up, like go fix this.
Right. Right.
But when you when I make a mistake, and when I go in an attempt to repair that, I am opening up myself to the possibility of the other person using that as a hook and abusing my
Yeah,
vulnerability, right?
getting back, getting
Yeah.
back at you.
Getting even and doing all of that, which is what I'd experienced in my marriage. And to me, with Avinash, that's the beauty of who he is as a person, right? That is never there, right? So it's not like we deny or we repress. Like, if I make a mistake, he's never going to say that, oh no, don't worry, don't bother. It's not that, right? There is acknowledgement that, okay, you messed up, and maybe because he doesn't really like uh, confrontational conflict, like where there's yelling and loud sounds, right? Because there is like a history of what that triggers for him. I, on the other hand, I have this warrior archetype with everything else in the world, right? Like, I'll pick up my sword and I'll get into a fight. So I have to be very careful to not go into that space with him, because that would then just like bring his defenses up. So it's not like conflict doesn't happen, but I think there are ways of dealing with conflict also. So for me, the repair, like when I've made a mistake, it's really about going in with that vulnerability, saying I messed up, this is what I did wrong, this is something that I shouldn't have done, with the knowledge that he's not going to abuse that power he has over me in that moment
Yeah.
and make me feel worse. And he's going to look for ways. He's always been a solution seeker all along, right? So uh, like to look for ways in which this might not get repeated in the future, or if there's an underlying root cause for it, if something from the past, then we look at that and we fix it. So that's how I'm able to repair my mistakes that I make. um, how is it for you, Avinash, like the repair work?
So what has happened now, Leigh, with in case of Mugdha, what I have realized is I can become a vulnerable person again. So that she has given me that space to be open about things, not to hide things. Now I can give you a real time analogy, like this cupboard you can see on this wall. You can see I am moving from this cupboard to this wall. So cupboard is the one I was earlier one, so it is getting smaller and smaller. The wall is becoming bigger. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to open up. I'm trying to as vulnerable as possible, and she is the person in whose presence I become the most vulnerable. Sometimes it triggers memories of my past, saying that okay, hey, you're becoming too vulnerable. Maybe people will get back to you, the person you're becoming vulnerable with will get back to you, will hit you, use it against you. But she's giving me that space, she's giving me that confidence, she's giving me that reassurance that, okay, this is okay to say. My earlier version was to hide everything which is not relevant to the other person. I am in a relationship with Mugdha. Apart from that, whatever is there, it's none of her business. Like it's like in this cupboard. I don't want this thing to be opened up. But now I have come to learn to deal with it, share with her, get her opinion if needed, uh, be open about receiving feedback. That I am learning. I am still learning. I still keep hiding things here and there. Unconsciously, I don't do it consciously, but
Yeah, I think it's a pattern, right? Like, because to
it's
protect
more of a
yourself.
self protection mechanism, to protect myself, to protect getting abused in some form or the other, like emotional or any form of abuse. So that was self protection mechanism which I have developed over a period of last 40 years, 45 years, and it will take some time to come out. But what she has given me is this space. Okay, it is okay to, or it is okay to make mistakes. The only thing is not lie about it, not hide it, not like push it under the carpet. Come out of it. Let's talk
Because
about it.
I
Let's
like at
discuss.
some point it'll all come out, right, Lee? And like I have,
Yeah.
you can't, like, especially in a relationship like ours, where like there's so much, and like given the amount of self work I do, I'm like always trying to push everything into the light. So if someone is in a close relationship with me, their stuff is going to come into the light, right? So you can't really, like, you can't be like at some point in every relationship, like the cupboards have to open up and the skeletons have to come tumbling out, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, all my cupboards are almost open now. Like my keys are with at least four people. My house keys are with many people in this world, and they can just come
yeah, but
in.
I think that the repair thing, like I think compassion and love,
Mhm.
is really, like, you really have to look at the person, like when he makes a mistake, even if it was like a big one that happened recently, right? I see him as the human being that he is. Like, yes, he's amazing and he's absolutely lovely and he's capable of like 99 amazing things, and there's this one thing that went wrong, but that doesn't take away all the 99 amazing things that we have together, right? And yes, that one thing feels very heavy because it triggers a lot of my own wounds, but the love and compassion that I have for him at all points of time, right, that
In fact, Leah, what I have noticed, that incident, a particular incident she is referring to, where she felt betrayed, she felt her trust was broken. Even it has changed me dramatically. Like it has helped me grow in a different way altogether. Where I was like absolutely at my vulnerable stage. Okay, do whatever you want me to do with. I mean, whatever you have the ideas about me. It helped me to evolve, and she has given me that space. Like in any other relationship, I would have just been, branded, castigated, and abused and misused, and all my vulnerabilities should be taken to task, and all those things would have happened. In Mugdha's case, it has made me more reassured. Like she has given me that assurance. It's okay. Come up, whatever your thoughts were. Maybe I'm not justifying it. It's absolutely, a shameless thing that I did, whatever I did. And I never thought I should be getting into it. But she has given me that perspective about not hiding things, and it has changed me in a better way altogether. It has helped me immensely. Maybe that was the reason it has to have happened. Like and as a relationship also, like I always maintain even in my mind work that I do with my clients. Like relationship is some third party that you are building together. It's
yeah,
not about you and me. Like
yeah, I
you
think
are
it's a
not.
separate container, it's a separate
It's a
entity all.
separate entity itself, like
Yeah.
what Mugdha and me are building together. And we are giving our energy, our thoughts, our mind, and our space to that particular entity. And as much as we give, that entity is going to grow. And if you allow it to have all sorts of emotions, all sorts of inputs, it will grow in a much better way. If you only give, say, one-sided inputs, or you feed only the good things, you don't feel the bad stuff, it is not going to evolve in a way which is more sustainable. Like it won't sustain. It
I
will
think
become
it's,
lovey-dovey kind of thing, but it will collapse under pressure. It will collapse under some severe conditions. So what we have built together, all thanks to Mugdha, that she has given me this perspective. She has opened me up at many levels. Right from the physical part, the sexuality itself is so amazing between us, and I realized the say what sex is all about at the age of 45. So
Yeah.
So even moving from that physical aspect to the mind part, the emotion part, and the soul part, these are the four being of our existence. Every aspect is being touched into this relationship. Every aspect is being explored together. Every aspect is being appreciated and worked on in this relationship, and that is what makes this particular relationship between us is very special. And that is how I feel. Like I feel consciously I am working on all those parts which needs repair, which needs healing. I consciously bring them out. And the topic of your relationship, conscious relationship, is all about this, working on, small things of every being of yours. Only the physical being is the densest one that you can see. The other beings are all energy being, like emotions, mind, and soul. We can even, work on those, partner with those emotions, be together, as you rightly said, the dance of union that we do. And the body reflects that, whatever we share at the emotion level or at the soul level or at the mind level. So our bodies are in tune with that. And when we have a sexual relationship, when we get intimate about it, it's like mind-blowing thing, the world's most beautiful thing that I have ever done. And all thanks to her.
No, it's not just
Oh,
me. It's both of us in this relationship, Avinash. We
Oh,
do it
thank.
together, right?
I love that so much. I call that multidimensional connection. And it really is when you have the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, the spiritual level together, it
Yeah,
really does make when you're physically intimate, it's almost like you can't go back. You can't go back to just kind of like a physical level of connection with somebody because you realize how profound it is. It really
Yes.
is spiritual level of sexuality.
yeah,
But with the repair piece too, you brought up such good points. I wanted to just return back to, like, you shared that, if you felt like it wasn't safe for you to go to him to repair it, and if he was going to shame you or if he was
right.
going to criticize you, it wouldn't feel safe. So I do think that that's a prerequisite for in the relationship as a whole, for it to feel safe for you to be like, oh my gosh, I made a mistake, I messed up, and to not have the other person shame you.
Yeah,
Yes, they can say, hey, yeah, ouch, that really hurt me, but that's very different from like abusive language, right? And then I love, Avinash, what you do is you help her problem solve through it, because it's one thing to say, hey, I'm really, really sorry, and to apologize. But then you have to have the second part, which is like,
yeah,
let's work together to figure out how we can transcend this next time.
yeah.
So that's so beautiful. How did you even how did you learn how to do relationships this way?
I don't know. It just came like it was the universe ka message. Maybe I learned from all the mistakes that I did, some part of it. But what I have realized when I am in her presence, I get all sorts of things, direct download from the universe. And in fact, yesterday she told me that you're going to talk about this topic, and I was like, okay. And morning I got all the downloads, and I can talk about stuff. So that is how the relationship has also evolved. We got the messages whenever we needed, in some form. Maybe it is in the form of some message on Twitter, or in the form of some songs. Like I'm a movie buff, so in the form of some movies, or we were just aware of things around us. When we are together, we are never closed. Okay, we are not going to look at another world. So all this messaging is coming from the universe, and that is how I think we just were open to receiving it. Take it inside and work on it and use it to our purpose, use it for our advantage.
Yeah,
For
that's
me,
so
I
beautiful.
think, Leanne, like getting out of that marriage and the 2 years of not being in any relationship at all allowed me to kind of evaluate what I'd been doing wrong to myself, like how much I'd abandoned myself, right? So I was very clear that the next relationship that I get into at whatever point of time, I'm never abandoning myself, right? So that's one conscious choice that I made. Even on the day that we actually got together as a couple, he said, "What is it that you're really looking for?" And I said, like one thing is, of course, I want to be touched with love. I really want to feel another human like touching my skin with love, and I want to feel that. The other thing is, I don't want to be owned ever again by another man. Like I can't be owned or possessed. So I have to have that sense of me going for me throughout, right? And I think I've held on to that. Like one of the things that very early on in our relationship, so that time we used to live far away because I kind of come back to India and I didn't want to live in the city. So I'd kind of found a place in the mountains, and that was 45 minutes away from like work and like every place. So when I'd go back in the night, I'd have to Uber it. And one night he like told me that, okay, you're going back, just text me when you reach home. And I was like, why? And he remembers that to this date, right? I was like, you're not my dad. You're not like, why? Like, why do you think I need to text you to tell you I've reached home? You think I'm like, I'm capable. I know jujitsu. Like, I can kill the cab driver with my credit card if I have to, right? I just let his throat with it. So I was like, never do that, never ever. Like now I see why he asked. I know he was concerned. I knew it was coming from a place of care. It wasn't really coming from a place of, oh, you're a woman and like I'm a man and I will protect you all the time. I know it wasn't coming from that place. But for me, early on, I think I'd made that really sacrosanct that you aren't ever going to make me feel that I can't like be on my own, because that's what had happened to me all through before.
Yeah.
And unlike him, I actually sign up for courses and I like learn and I did like a couple of months with you. So I really like learning how to do this better, like reading books and things like that. So for me, I learn from that and then I apply it to our relationship, and most of the times it works, right? So I learn, like I learn from courses and books and people like you. He learns experientially, like he would never sign up for a course like that, right? But yeah,
So you guys, it's so dark here. Let me turn the light on.
yeah,
Hang on a second. But I love this. I love this conversation. Okay, that's better. So can we just return to the piece too of like, remember how you were talking about the first couple years felt really, really good. It was kind
yeah,
of like the honeymoon period, some people call it. And then it shifted, which happens so often for people, right? But I think that rather than it being a signal or like have people scared, something's wrong, like what's going on, this is the part where unless you have like, I hate to say it this way, but unless there are some kind of bumps in the road, you
mhm,
almost don't have the growth and evolutionary
yes,
aspect, right?
right,
And so if it's always so easy and rainbow and butterflies all the time, like you're not going to have your wounds aren't going to be triggered, right? And so this is what I want to just remind people of, if you can just, this is what it actually comes down to. It really comes down to having a growth mindset to be able
mhm,
to see, whether it's in your romantic partnership or just in life in general, what is the opportunity here? How can I grow and evolve from this, rather than slipping into, oh, poor me, this is horrible, right? Those are two very different mindsets. And so would you both, like, do you feel like both of you had that growth mindset coming in to this
yes,
relationship?
yes. I've always been like super growth oriented, and I think that's why the first relationship collapsed, right? Like, see, it was not like my ex husband was like the nastiest person uh, when we started dating and when I was in that marriage. It was very romantic. It was very Bollywood movie like, and like lots of like all of those little things happening. And then because I am so growth oriented, and then he kind of wanted it to be the same, right? Like he didn't want it to change. uh, I
Right.
couldn't be there for like, I don't know how I did 14 years also, but like I got out of it. So I had realized that about myself, that I'm super growth oriented. And I, like, you've known me in the last like the 2 months of therapy that we did, like every week there'd be like a huge shift, right? So I'm like that. So even when I got into this with him, I knew that is how I am. I didn't know what was his appetite for growth. Um, but I knew one thing, that because I'd walked out of something that was 14 years, I knew that I could walk out of something if it was not going to serve my growth at all. So I
Right.
came in like that, and like I think because I'm also so growth oriented, like a lot of the challenges have really pushed me to evolve and become stronger. Avinash, also, I think like you've been someone who's like gone zooming towards growth after your 2012 escape from Nigeria.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the growth the Mugdha talks about. I'm more of a person who just navigates across, the bandwidth. Like I can go into any direction. I can be doing any stupid stuff, and next moment I'm talking about spirituality and talking about consciousness, and
Yeah.
I can move
That's a big
around.
difference between him. Like once I
Yeah.
go somewhere, then I can't go back.
She can't come back, so I have to be
Yeah.
there all the time. Whenever I'm with her, with my other friends, I have to come down, so I come down. So it's
Oh, I
not
love it.
down and up like that, but yeah, that flexibility. And she has accorded that space for me to go and experiment on my own, because that is how I learn. That is how I connect with this world. That is how I see the world through all these places. I look at the growth that she talks about. I have grown immensely in terms of my knowledge about my own self, because it was all hidden. I had this inkling, I had this realization something is amiss. Like I am not the person I am on this planet, or whatever I am doing here. And that is what I have learned, who I am actually, what I'm doing here, what is my purpose. And that made so much of sense, and it actually changed me. Like I changed my profession completely. I'm a chemical engineer doing oil and gas stuff. I am now a mind healing coach or a health coach, or working with her company and helping her build it. So entire profession of like 25 years, what I did, I changed. So if you call it growth, yes, it is a growth. I look at it from more of different kind of experience altogether. And what my relationship with Mugdha has given me that space to, do this stuff, realize yourself, explore yourself. And she has helped me immensely, like to go deep inside, come up with whatever you have, and see whether it makes sense or not. She actually gave me a purpose to verbalize that purpose on this planet. Otherwise, I was just shooting in the dark. Maybe this is what I was supposed to do. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And I kept doing small stuff, but it was not coming up in a way that I can make sense of. Now it makes perfect sense. Whatever I'm doing, the way I'm going around, the way I look at my professional life, my personal life, my relationships, everything makes so much sense. Everything has become so clear. And I think that is what the growth is all about, and that is what has helped this relationship with Mugdha, that has helped me to realize this thing. So I think relationships should do that to you, to
Yeah.
give you that space to realize
Yeah,
yourself, to
the thing
look
that
at
I
it.
want to add here, while I'm like so growth oriented, it can be extremely destabilizing for a lot of people, like
Right.
to the extent of it becoming like a mental health issue, like someone might really call it that, right? And what he offers me is that incredible stability and the foundation for me to keep pivoting, right? Because if that didn't exist,
Yeah.
it's it's really fast, right, the trajectory, and then like sometimes it can feel like you're going off balance and you don't know where you're going. It's unknown, right, like the growth itself. So if that sense of, like, I keep coming back to this word of safety, but I think it's really important, the stability and the foundation for you to just take off, and then like, okay, now like then he brings that foundation to wherever I am, and then I take off again, and then he brings the foundation there. So
Right.
yeah, that like that's how
Sometime I'm scared. Like, where is she going today? Okay, I have to be there already with the foundation. Okay, she's going to land there. Okay, let me be there with my foundation
I
already.
love that. Well, so Mugdha, that was so beautiful how I was actually just going to kind of go in that direction too, because for both of you, I feel like these kind of evolutionary relationships can actually lift both people up into their highest, best
yeah,
expression, whatever language you want to use. It
yeah,
can really lift you up into who you truly are. I love how Avinash said that, who you truly are, right? Because it actually, all the stuff that comes up, all the layers of trauma and
yeah,
conditioning that you can actually work through, once you peel all that away, you're left with your true self with a capital S. And so
yeah,
these relationships
yeah,
can really bring you up. So this is like when you have the container, that third entity that you guys were talking about, when it's so safe, when it's so filled with love and support, then that's like the recipe to have this happen, right? And not that it's going to be perfect all the time. One thing that you mentioned too is like it can be destabilizing
yeah,
if you're always about growth and evolution. And that's what I think. This is like, I have kind of a theory that I think that's why people, well, maybe it's not really that that out there, but it's like a lot of people don't actually like these kind of relationships because they sort of know on a subconscious level that they're a little bit risky. If you're going to get into this kind of relationship where it is all about growth and evolution, then what if one partner grows like this and the other
Yeah,
person
that,
doesn't,
that that
right?
is the insecurity a lot of couples
Right.
face, right?
Yeah, so I think people, whether they sort of know it consciously or not, like there's that fear of
And
like,
that's
we
why they
want to both
hold
stay
their
the same.
partners back. Yeah.
Right. We want to both stay the same, which is like
Yeah.
what your ex was like. I just want everything to be the same forever, right?
Yeah.
But it's like these relationships will there's inherent risk in it, I guess is the thing. So I have about 5 more minutes. Is that good for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah,
You guys,
go ahead.
okay. So I wanted to just really close by having you both share, like, what is your biggest, what are your greatest words of wisdom for other couples? If they look at you and they just see like, wow, this sounds really great. What are your biggest words of wisdom for them?
Avinash, you're the wise one.
Okay. So, no problem. Yeah, I am the wisest one rather.
Yeah.
So a lot of people send me this message, you're one of the best person in my life. I said, I am the best, not one of the best. Okay, there is no other.
Okay.
It's good to be narcissist sometime. So I enjoy this little bit of moments of narcissism also. So, see, this is what I was talking about. Like, you allow that space in a relationship. What is you're creating is a space where both of you can join together, come together with your truest self possible, and if possible, create beautiful things or just enjoy that space between two of you. And all the effort that we take of building a house or having kids or buying a car or getting as much bank balance as possible, we forget to create this space between the partners. So for me, that is the most important thing, that space where you can be your best or the worst version of yourself and still not be judged for it or still not be castigated for it. And but the intention has to be there. The intention is to repair and heal and grow from that place, not to hurt other person or not to intentionally damage someone else. So that is where I would you're asking for words of wisdom. I don't know whether it is a wisdom or not. This is what I have learned, and that is what I share. Like, I learned from my experiences, and I learned through various failed relationship that I had, and the relationship with I have with Mugdha. What I have learned is everyone needs to create this space between them that helps them to grow, that helps them to evolve, that helps them to be as vulnerable as possible. And every couple, every partnership should evolve into that, creating that space for each other and hold it forever if you want to be together forever.
Yeah,
Yeah. For
beautiful.
me, it's like very important what he said, because the two of us, we work together, right? Like, we're building iThrive together. And initially, like, when he came into my life, it was iThrive was just my baby, and I had this vision of healing 1 million people and stuff like that. And then he came on board, and he actually became a bigger and bigger part of the company. And now we are at a place where we together building this thing, and it's really growing. But sometimes, and I'm very conscious about this, like, like, because it's like 8 hours at work we together, and then you think you spend time together, but you spend time together on the thing you're building together, not necessarily with each other in the context of you just being a human being with each other, right? It's just Mugdha and Avinash,
Right.
and no I Thrive there. So for us, I Thrive is our baby, but for other people, they have real human babies also, right, in the relationship. So I think it's really important for at least one partner, if not both, to be aware that you need to take, like, for the relationship to really evolve beyond all the things that you're co-creating in this world, you have to take time for the two of you together, the way it was when it began first, right? So it could be in, like, date nights once a month, or you just hang out together. Sundays, like Sundays, I have this, like, strict no work policy. Like, we won't talk about work at all, right? Because it's very easy to get into that loop for both of us, because we're really passionate about what we're doing with iThrive. But Sundays, I'm like, no, we're not going to talk about work. We'll do the silliest, goofiest things together, but it's not going to be work, because that space that we create with each other, that time that we create with each other is just us both with the conscious awareness that we are in this relationship together, and we have to like the humanness of him needs to be honored, the humanness of me needs to be honored, and
Yeah.
that is really important, right? So I think like it's really a very human desire. It might not be the wisest thing, but I think that time together, carving out time for that, to do things together beyond all the co-creation that you're doing, beyond all the like whatever inner work you're doing for yourself, beyond all of that, together time is really important.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I mean,
Sometimes it's
you
important for repair, sometimes that's important for just building. So yeah.
Oh, I mean, you might not say that that's the wisest thing, but I actually think it is quite wise. I mean, um, a lot of relationship stuff comes down to kind of back to the basics. Like it sounds simple, right? Just like to be together and prioritize the relationship. But in real life, how many people are actually doing that and
Yeah.
carving out that time, right? And so, like, that's a beautiful point. I think both of you just, yeah, you are kind of, you could teach conscious relationships, and I think you should. I love talking about this. I could talk about it forever. I just want to thank you both so much for being so open and just honest and vulnerable. It's not easy to talk about, your relationship to the world. And so, yeah, so just to wrap up, people can reach out to me with any questions. I love talking about this. I have things like links I can share with you if you want to learn more about the basics of conscious relationships. Just reach out. Do you have any last words? Any
How
last
do
things?
people reach out to you, Leanne? Like if they had to find you, what's
Yeah.
the best way?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and I have a website. Is there a way to link those?
We can put that in the show notes, like in the YouTube.
Perfect.
Yeah, I love
Okay.
you to do that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Because
probably
I think
my
yeah.
last word. Like, go ahead, Mugdha, finish it.
No,
I will have the last word.
all
Right?
right, Avinash, you have the last word. I was just like, because I was saying that people really need to understand how important this is. And I think in today's times, it's become more and more important to kind of start having these sacred containers between you and another person through which you can evolve. So, like, guys, I'm saying like Lian could help me and my mind, which is like, and I'm like, when Avinash and I discussed that maybe I just need to like look for somebody who can help me, like a therapist, and Avinash like, who is even going to be like, who's going to be able to go into your mind and like help you sort it out, right? Like, who's going to be able to do that? Like, how are you going to find this person? And I'm sure there's someone designed to do that, and I am so glad I found you. So for those of you watching this, I'm telling you, she's amazing. She just brings this amazing self energy that like every session with you pushed me into another up level of growth, right? So reach out to her, guys. And I think you also have a group program, a Facebook group. I'm not sure what, like, is that only for the people you work with one on one, that the Facebook group is, or
Oh, so I'm not on Facebook. I can't be on there. It drives me a little nuts. But so the group is actually, it's a virtual group. We meet on Zoom every 2 weeks. So yeah, please reach out. I know the time doesn't work for both of you. I would love to have you guys on, but it's 1 p.m. PST every other Saturday. That's like the middle of the night for you guys. But okay, and I want Avinash to have the last word. But the last thing I'll say very, very quick is that just to motivate people to kind of go down this path of conscious relationships, what I feel like at this point in the evolution of humanity, I feel like conscious relationships are probably the number one vehicle for
yeah,
our growth and evolution, for humanity's growth and evolution.
yeah,
And so if you can just get yourself into one of these kind of relationships, you will skyrocket your soul's development faster than working with any coach, therapist, workshop. It's like, just get yourself into one of these. And especially with the romantic partnership, you, like I said at the beginning, you can do it with friendships, family. But the reason why this partnership between you, like you guys, the romantic thing is so potent is for a couple of reasons. One, it includes the sexual piece, which you don't get in other relationships.
right,
So that can really heal you on like a very high level. And then also because it helps you to create that masculine feminine polarity, which is sort of the next level. So we talked about conscious relationships today. Divine union for me is like the top tier. It's the level of real spiritual partnership. So we can do another one all about that as well later.
Yes.
But yeah, so Avinash, you can have the last word.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to bring out one of
I think his internet.
Mugdha's quality. Like she has this uncanny ability of finding out. But every month she comes up with a new gem, and she found you here. You're the most amazing person I met, and that is another Mugdha's talent, that she finds all these amazing people, and she makes my life so rich with the kind of experiences I get, the kind of work I do, all thanks to her. And thanks, Leigh Anne. It was lovely interacting with you. And I never thought I can open up about relationship, because she keeps posting on the Facebook those heart flutters and all that, and it never comes to me. So if I have to talk about relationship, it has to be on this kind of platform or this kind of forum where I can make logical sense. Otherwise, I can't send hearts and flowers and whatever. Those kind of thing was not my type. But thank you for bringing out that aspect of my relationship. Let me, allowed me to talk about this and express myself. And that is all, Leigh Anne. It's because of your presence.
But
And it
she's
was
amazing, guys. Like I'm telling you, you
yeah. Yeah, I can feel it. Like I can feel her energy right now.
yeah,
The way
I'm
she
so
you're
like
gave
really
it
me
makes
gave,
me so
gave me that
shy.
space to open up. And thank you, Leigh Anne, thank you, Mugdha, being
all right.
both beautiful ladies, and I am the fortunate one.
All right.
Wow. Okay, I'm so touched. Thank you both so much. We could talk for hours. I
I
I just
know.
feel like we could sit down and have coffee and talk for hours. So thank you for trusting me and having me on, and hopefully we'll have many more conversations.
Yes,
Yes,
I would so look forward to that. And thank you so much, Leanne.
thank
Thank you
you.
both. It was
Bye.
such a pleasure.
Bye bye.
Bye.